listening to the Pillaging Podcast, companion podcast to PillagingJustForFun.com, the only Raider fan site made by Raider fans for Raider fans. Tune in every Tuesday on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher Radio. Call and leave a message to be played on air at 408-909-PJFF. Also, follow us on Twitter at PillageJustForFun. That's at PillageJust4Fun. I'm your host, Kenny Stapler, joined every week by my co-host,
Raider Kane.
It's time to pillage another podcast. So what's good, Kane? How you living, man? What have you been up to?
Oh, man, I've just been chilling, man, and trying to just take this off season real slow. I mean, it's been lazy days right now it's in between sports. You know, we got the basketball playoffs getting ready to come up here, baseball getting ready to start. So it's just lazy days, man. I'm just chilling. What about you?
I'm looking forward also to the baseball season starting. I just want to point out that Kane here is one of the hardest working men in Raider Nation. And I don't know if you want to share it, but you got an entrepreneurial project on the side. I don't know if you want to save that. But Kane's got something bubbling in the community out there. I think it's going to be a real big hit. Do you want to share that, or do you want to save that for later?
I think I'm gonna tuck that in the bag for right now and wait till, I don't want to jinx nothing right now. But as soon as when everything goes down, I'll definitely let you guys know.
Respect. Just know Kane's got something coming. I think you guys can be excited about it. What am I up to, man? I'm working pretty hard too. I'm putting in a lot of hours at the job. I'm in a lot of meetings and see myself surrounded by a bunch of bigwigs, and I'm like, man, how did I get here? Especially because I be wilding out on the weekends, doing the Raider tailgates and stuff when the games are going on. But Monday through Friday is time to strap it on and be a professional. And it's sometimes you got to step back and be like, wow, I'm adulting really hard right now. So that's what I've been up to. Also, you guys know I do a little bit of music on the side. Very excited this last weekend. I got to go up to South San Francisco and get a couple tracks mastered. We got a couple singles coming out shortly, and that's my side thing. So when that happens, I'll probably be sharing it here. I don't want to do anything, no shameless plugs, but hey, I'm proud of it. I'm going to throw it out there and see what you guys think about it. You hear the music on the show. Most of it's mine. Our outro, a good friend of ours, Toby, he goes by Silver and Black 666, and you could check out his page too, cosmicdanceband.com, I believe is the website. So check them out and give them some support. They've been playing music in the Bay Area a long time, and it's just a dynamite band. If you're into blues or you're into classic rock, definitely check them out because they got it together. So without further ado, if you got nothing else to add right now, we're going to move into our interview. This week's guest, Lincoln Kennedy, a man that is so bad he was named after 2 assassinated presidents. That's a certified badass right there.
Amen.
All right, so without any more wait, let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Lincoln Kennedy. All right, joining us on the show today is Lincoln Kennedy, former Raider great that played on the dominant O-line during the team's last Super Bowl run and current sideline reporter for the Silver and Black. Welcome, Mr. Kennedy. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
Well, please call me Lincoln. I appreciate it, but call me Lincoln, man. That formality, Mr. Kennedy, that's more of my father's stuff, so call me Lincoln. It's all good.
I feel you. So we got a few questions for you today. We're going to fire at you, both Kane and I, and then some of our callers that wrote us in and left some messages, and they got some questions for you too, and we'll get to as much as we can as time allows. So
awesome.
Let's jump right into it. I want to kind of get started with some current questions. I got questions for you about the team now and also about some of your experiences back when you played, because I think a lot of people want to know. So just starting off, if Carr hadn't gone down last year, how far do you see the Raiders going?
Oh, well, you know what? It's always hard to factor in the injury factor on a team's potential. I look at it this way. I said last year, even before the season started, in all the interviews and people I talked to, that I thought the Raiders were a playoff-bound team. Now, I wasn't at the time ready to anoint them the division. I said that I thought they would be more capable of being a wild card. And I think that's the natural progression. You go 7-9 2 years ago, and then, you probably go 9-7 or 10-6. You find yourself in the playoffs, and that's the sort of natural progression that you want. Unfortunately, in professional football, I felt that too much success too soon tends to lead you astray. The people start taking part in your team. You really know how good you are. You don't necessarily know how good you are in that time factor. So I thought it was a natural progression. With that being said, to see the Raiders, live above beyond expectations, going 12-4, I mean, I really didn't expect that in any way. More importantly, they were just one game out of winning the division and hosting a home game, and as well as possibly being the number 2 seed in the playoffs. So I guess the sky is the limit without Derek Carr. But we definitely know this: when he went down, they were not the same team, and they were lost without him. So it's more than obvious that you're going to have to keep Derek Carr in the fold and keep him healthy if you have any ambitions of having any type of future success.
Fantastic. And so you had them as a playoff team last year and not ready to anoint them to division, which is completely fair. I think all of us that were sensible were right there with you. Going forward next year, is the sky the limit with them? Does the ceiling get higher? Do you keep it right where it was?
Well, here's what I will say. Yes, the short answer to your question is yes. I think you're ready to take that next step. But I will tell you this: the AFC West is probably the most competitive division in football, from top to bottom. And you will have teams left and right that are going to be beating up on one another. Right now, what seems to be the Achilles heel of the Raiders is the Kansas City Chiefs. They're not going anywhere, and they're going to get better, just like every team is out to get better. Until they cross over that hurdle, it's easy for us to say the sky's the limit, but wait, there's a chief in the way. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The same thing ran true for my run in the late 90s and early 2000s when John Gruden. Remember, Gruden forever could not beat who? The Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
No matter how good of a team we had, we could not beat the Denver Broncos, and they were a thorn in our side. More importantly, if you look back to the 2000 season, when we hosted the AFC Championship game against the Ravens, we went 12-4 that year, but 2 of our 4 losses came to the hands of the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
You see, so there's these Achilles heels that stick in a team's crawl. Indianapolis forever couldn't get over New England. Once they did, they finally went to the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl. You see what I'm saying? Those types of things. So they've got to figure out that, and I think that's going to be easier said than done. But as I said, more importantly, when we started, you talk about this division. This division is nothing to laugh at. They're going to beat up on one another. So not only do the Raiders have to find a way to get over the Kansas City Chiefs, but they also have to find a way to maintain the level of competition they've had against the Broncos and the Chargers.
Absolutely. I mean, at least we got over the hump of winning on the East Coast. I think that was tremendous. So yeah, I agree with you. I had during the middle of last season, I said 2 last check boxes on Derek Carr's list is A, beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and B, be more active at the line of scrimmage. And I think we're right there. So thank you.
I agree with you.
Kane, I know you had some questions for Lincoln. What you got over there?
Again, thank you for coming on the Pillaging podcast, Lincoln. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And my question, one of my questions to you is, how do you compare the O-line you played on in the Super Bowl year to the current O-line of 2016?
Well, I'm a little partial because I played on that line, so I'm naturally going to say that we're better. But that's just me being greedy. No, in all honesty, I think when you talk about all the fluff we see in today's game or in today's football period, you got to pay homage to what wins. You're going to have a defense, and you're going to have an offensive line if you think that you're going to be able to achieve anything. The Raiders invested heavily over the last couple of years in their offensive line, and they definitely have a force to be reckoned with. If they're able to stay healthy and sort of solidify the position of right tackle, again, just like keeping Derek Carr healthy, the sky is the limit. You saw from the Dallas Cowboys, their regular season record, what they were able to do with a good, healthy offensive line. That's sort of the same thing that the Raiders are going to be able to do. The number of guys that got voted into the Pro Bowl this year is something that's commendable and shows you just how good that unit's going to be. They've got to take advantage of the window, because I've always believed when you get a certain chemistry or rapport amongst players, especially in today's game, the maximum window that you're going to have, the maximum amount of opportunity you're going to have is 4 years. So the Raiders kind of have to make something move within the next, or get something going in the right direction like they did last year, and push it a little bit further. But to answer your question, I think the Raiders offensive line is a pretty good one.
Yeah, they were a little premature this year. Derek Carr had a really good season, and that was kind of catapulted us to where we are today. And another question I have for you is, how do you compare this run game with Murray, Richard, and a little bit of DeAndre Washington sprinkled in to Charlie Garner, Tyrone Wheatley, and Zach Crockett?
Well, here's the thing. It would be easy to look at the numbers and the guys and say, well, it's apples to apples, but it's actually apples to oranges. The way I see it is that one thing that we had when we had Tyrone Wheatley, and Wheatley was running the main running back. I think that year, those 2 years, we were either number one or in the top 5 in the rushing offense in the league. We rarely made a commitment to the run. And then, of course, when we went to Charlie Garner, well, the reason why Charlie was able to make it so much more effective, like DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard, is that his ability to catch out of the backfield really opened up the offense under Rich Gannon. So we went, but we still had a power running game. One thing I think the Raiders have lacked is a short yardage power running game. Everybody and their mama knew that Zach Crockett was going to get the ball when it's 3rd and short or 4th and goal or whatever. He knew he was going to get the ball. It's going to be 14 or 15 blasts. That's what we ran. That was our main play, run play. And we didn't mind walking up to the line and saying, "Look, it's coming. You know it's coming. Now you got to try to stop it." So that's the attitude that you have. When it comes to this running game right here, it's still, to me, a serious lack of identity. People were speculating that the Raiders are going to allow Latavius Murray to go on the free agent market on March 9th, which is probably going to happen. I could see it happening mainly because I don't think this team has determined its true run identity. Jalen Richard, DeAndre Washington are backs that you can work out of the run, the shotgun situation, scat backs, that type of thing. Latavius Murray is more of an I back, a downhill back, and you have to have the type of offense that commits to him, more like you see out of the Minnesota Vikings, Adrian Peterson or somebody like that. I don't think the Raiders have that. I don't know if the Raiders want to go that way. It was speculated before Musgrave's departure last year that after last year that's what they wanted. They wanted to go with a power running game. But in order to do that, you either have to have, well, one thing we didn't have, especially when Lee Smith went down, didn't have a true blocking tight end, or more importantly, a fullback to help solidify the edges or help establish that power running game. So either they're going to have to commit to getting a fullback if they want to keep Latavius Murray, but I think from the words I'm hearing, they're probably going to let him test the market and see where he goes, because if this is more of a one-back gun run type of stuff, even though you've seen a little balance out of last year, then they're probably better suited with running back by committee with guys like DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard, and maybe adding somebody else in there.
That's great.
And do you see him maybe at? Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say thanks for answering that. We had a caller, Dan78, who comes from Pillaging Just for Fun. That's our companion podcast. And he actually had that question about Latavius Murray. So you got out in front of that and answered that. I just wanted to give a shout out to Dan for his good question. And thanks again. Go ahead, Kane.
Do you think that if Latavius Murray walks, that we'll draft a running back in the late first round, early second round? We had Jason Cole on our show last week, and he's alluded to the fact that we may take a look at McCaffrey. What do you think about that?
In all honesty, I don't, even though McCaffrey can be electrifying, a dynamic player, I would commit more on the defense with the picks, the first couple of picks. Does that make sense? I think the Raiders need a beast at either defensive tackle or linebacker.
Yeah.
They need that. Okay. And I don't necessarily, when it comes to running backs, I don't think that you have to spend a high draft choice, because if you're going to have running back by committee, then so be it. You can throw a bunch of guys at it. You can throw a bunch of running backs at it. It just depends on your identity. And the reason why I say that is because I know even though the Raiders had a decent running attack last year, statistically, I couldn't tell you what their true identity was. More importantly, when it came time to crunch time, most notably after Derek Carr went down, they went to Denver, they couldn't run the ball. Went to Houston, they couldn't run the ball. So even though Latavius Murray has shown a little bit of spots, and even in the Houston game, the playoff game, a little bit, but it wasn't all consistent enough in order to win that game, they didn't have a true identity to fall back on when Derek Carr went down. So to answer your question, I wouldn't use a draft choice in the first 3 rounds on a running back. I think you can get definitely a productive one in the 4th round. But again, it depends on your identity.
Okay, and I have one last question, and I'm gonna throw it back to Kenny. My question is how Rich Gannon, he was the last best quarterback we had, and up to date, Derek Carr is an up and coming quarterback. Do you think Derek Carr will surpass Gannon's numbers in Gannon's MVP year, or do you think Derek Carr has already reached his ceiling with this 2016 season?
Oh, no. I mean, as pass happy a league as this is, the weapons around Derek, you can probably equate it that even at Rich's height, when he won the MVP, he had as good a receivers as Derek has right now. Of course, two Hall of Famers, Tim Brown and Jerry Rice, just to name a few. You know what I mean? So I think the sky, again, we use the phrase, the sky's the limit. Derek Carr is going to get nothing but better because he's going to get more accumulated to where the league is, the speed of the league. He's already worked pretty darn well. There's still some things that, in my opinion, he needs to learn. He needs to get, but that will come with the experience. So I think that all the things that Rich Gannon, I can see Derek doing that and more, including eventually winning the MVP.
Yeah, we were talking about how last season he was going to the line with a package of plays to choose from. I think the next obvious evolution from that is making line adjustments and more specific audibles, much like Rich Gannon was doing back then. And I definitely think Derek has the mental capacity to step up to that level. So I'm with you 100%.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, yeah. The thing is that you look at the way Derek Carr, and of course a lot of quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, all these guys work what we call the pre-snap reads. They go up there, they see the defense, they know what the defense is playing, and they have a check with me system built into their offense where they can make the necessary adjustments. It's a little bit different than when it was back in my day, because a lot of times defenses had to show their hand, to show their blitz for us to audibilize. And Rich would do a couple hand signals out to the receivers, maybe to make some subtle adjustments. But for the line and protection, you had to see that it was worth audibilizing. These days, it's a pre-snap read. And the quarterbacks are working that way. And more times than not, like you saw Derek do last year, he had a check with me system in place. And he would have two plays in his huddle and call two plays in huddle. And he would go up to the line and he would pick either one or two, or just totally audibilize, depending on the situation of the defense. So he's going to get, as he gets more and more experience and much more equated to this offense and this offensive philosophy, then he'll have a little bit more freedom to do what he likes.
Let's just say that doesn't happen. Okay. I play a lot of Madden. Like, put me in there. You know what I mean? I'm ready. Yeah. Just playing though. Great question, great answer. We have quite a following over on Reddit. We have some people over there that follow the Pillaging podcast every Tuesday. And Mutt Guy Air at Reddit, you already answered part of this question, but he wants to know what the team's top priority is in free agency and the draft. And I'm hearing from you, defense in the draft, inside linebacker, defensive tackle, 100%. But in free agency, where do you see this team going?
I'd like for this team to try to figure out a way to get either Dontari Poe from Kansas City, or you've got to, well, first of all, you got to commit to the secondary. Yeah. Linebacker, defensive tackle, linebacker, and secondary, all three levels of this defense are an issue to me, whether it's free agency or whether it's through the draft. Ideally, I'd like them to draft a linebacker for a solid foundation. You're going to commit big top dollar to Khalil Mack. He's going to be your defensive end as long as he possibly plays. You're eventually going to commit top dollar to Derek Carr. You got a little bit more freedom because he was a second round pick and he wasn't a top one. So you don't have to necessarily do it right now, but he's going to be your franchise quarterback. I think you have to have another solid player in that defense. And I know that the Raiders, because I don't see a lot of it with the college game, you don't really have a knockdown, slobber knocker type of linebacker that I think the Raiders can get, especially in the position they're picking in. But I do think if they decide to go for speed, there's a number of options out there that they might be able to get in the late first round.
What do you think is Zach Cunningham at number 24?
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, the thing is that all these guys that we talk about, I really don't put a lot of credence in the rookies, guys. I'm one of those guys where even if you throw a big draft choice at it, this guy can turn out to look like Tarzan but play like Jane. So I don't put a lot of emphasis. I got to see these guys in the pro game. It's a different level, and there have been times I do know this, because we can sit here and talk about names all the, what Reggie McKenzie has done and his staff has done. Pretty notable. I mean, look at what they've been able to put together. And the fact is, they've been fined more money than they've spent out there on free agents because they're not throwing money around. So I really like the solid job that this scouting department has done. I don't put it past anyone to be that person that they take and can probably make an impact because they've got a pretty good track record over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd love to see them bring in Tony Jefferson. It sounds like he wants to be there, and Raider Nation, they're going at him pretty hard on Twitter. But that's
Certainly.
all. Yeah, that's all speculation right now. Now I know you just said names are names. I'm with you 100%. I kind of get overwhelmed when looking at these draft prospects because you just never know. But that being said, just a couple more names to throw at you. One of our diehards over on the site, pillagingJustForFun.com, in one word Raider. He's got a couple questions for you about some players coming out of your alma mater, the UW. Let me get out of the way. I'll let him ask you.
What's up, guys? It's in one word Raider with some more questions for Lincoln. Don't mean to hog your airtime, but Lincoln, as a UW alum, assuming you follow them, what do you think about John Ross and Buda Parker? Studs in the NFL, are they good fits for us? Thanks, guys. Bye.
John Ross, talking about John Ross, first of all, I think he's a player and I know it's high praise, but it's the one that comes to Anthony Brown, Pittsburgh Steelers. He has that potential. Now, what I see him that he needs to toughen up a bit. He was physically taken out the game in the Alabama game. I saw that out. He got hit a couple times early and then won anything left of that game. So that shows me, and of course we do remember the year before he was on the bench with I don't know if you guys know that, but he was on the bench with a knee injury. So He was out the year before. So he played basically 1 year and had a phenomenal year. Tremendous talent, guy that you want to get the ball in his hands because again he reminds me of an Anthony Brown, but he's got to toughen up. So that's my criticism of him. Buda Baker, I think, just needs to put on more weight. Solid player, very good instincts. Great quickness, great agility, great awareness, is always around the ball. But the way he throws his body in, almost like a Troy Polamalu back in the day, he doesn't have the physique. He doesn't have the buildup that you need to be that type of player like that. And so he's going to have to pack on some muscle and some weight in order to pad him a little bit. So, but both I think will be solid on the next level.
Cool. One more question about needs for this team. I see right tackle as a giant need on this team. And Podunk Raider, another one of our diehards, he's got a question for you regarding the state of the right tackle position on this team. Again, I'll get out of the way and let him ask you himself.
Hey, Kane and Ken. This is Podunk Raider. I was just calling in. I had a question for Lincoln Kennedy. First off, LK, thank you for your 8 years of service in the silver and black as a player. A big fan of your Chalk Talks on Raiders.com. I just wanted to ask Lincoln if you feel like Austin Howard is the answer at right tackle. I know he's dealt with like 3 different injuries this last year with the knee and ankle, and now I think he had like a separated shoulder or something. So anyway, I don't know if he's the answer. Obviously, Watson is not. Didn't know if you think we should maybe look for help in the draft.
This is always a difficult question because I like Menelik.
Yeah.
I like him personally. I think he's a good player. But he can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
I'm a realist. I don't care what you've done and what you've achieved. I need you here and now. And when I need you to be there. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He can't play hurt, or he hasn't really played hurt. He can't be relied upon. And as much as I would hate to let that talent go, you do realize that once his contract's up, you're going to have to pay him big money.
Yeah.
I can't trust in that if I'm a general manager. It's just that cut and dry, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we need to go heavy at right tackle and hope for depth, but then, plan for a possible replacement.
The great thing about offensive line, and this is what you can do in training camp, even though they don't really have training camps anymore. The great thing is that you can throw a bunch of bodies at it. You don't have to use high draft choices on offensive line these days because there's a number of guys out there. Let's face it, you're going to have to work with them. You have to train them anyways because most of the offensive line in college only go from a 2-point stance and don't necessarily know how to work, within the confines of an NFL type system. So you're going to have to develop them, even though it's really hard to develop in this day and age. But you don't have to use a high draft choice, in my opinion. What you're drafting, when you look at the top offensive tackles that are going, you're drafting athleticism. you're drafting the athletic ability that they could become something. Eric Fisher, number 1 pick a couple years ago for the Kansas City Chiefs. Look how long it took him to develop before they moved him over to left tackle, and they had to give him. By the time they moved him over to left tackle, he was going into his 4th year. They had to pay him with a big contract. You see what I'm saying? To be that left tackle, and he still has things that he has to work on. But that's what you're drafting off of offensive linemen these days. And so with that mentality, you could throw a lot of bodies in there. You just have to find some way to get some production. Now, the most difficult aspect of it for our division, AFC West, is that you've got some beasts at pass rushers.
Yeah.
You got Joey Bosa for the Chargers. You got Houston for the Kansas City Chiefs, and you got Von Miller. So you can't just throw anybody at it. You got to have somebody who's got athletic talent who can play that position, especially in this division. So it's a little bit trickier than just the overall concept. But the idea and what I'm trying to get at is that you don't have to use a high draft choice if the guy's not there. You're not going to use a high draft choice for a right tackle anyways.
Right.
That doesn't happen. You use it for a left tackle or you use it for a guard or something like that, but not a right tackle.
Is the future right tackle on the roster right now?
No. They got to get a right tackle. There's no doubt about it. No.
So, just a few more questions if you got time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Army Tank over on Reddit, he wants to know what your favorite moment was as an Oakland Raider.
Oh, there's too many to count. I mean, once for Christmas, I got twins. No, I can't use that one. You know what? It was just, for me, Al Davis, may he rest in peace, welcomed me with open arms when I first went to the Raiders. And I knew the first day I suited up, that's where I belonged. So, I mean, there's not one defined true moment. I mean, there was just so many. Had so many good years. A lot of it's a blur. I mean, just met so many great guys, but, sharing a line with guys like Steven Wisniewski and then, of course, our line and stuff like that, that we had during our Super Bowl year. I just had a bunch of great guys there around me. Tim Brown, Jerry Rice, our offense, Pro Bowl success, we kicked a lot of ass. So it's hard to just determine one moment, if that makes sense.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, you guys had a hell of a run. We loved it.
I love watching you guys play back then. Yeah,
good time.
So he had 2 more questions. I'll just fire both about him right now. What's something about O-line play that nobody ever talks about or knows about unless you've played the game that you can share with us? And then lastly, he wants to know, on your breakfast sandwich, is it bacon or is it sausage?
Well, I'll answer the second question easy. That's the easiest, the one. It's definitely bacon. I'm a bacon man. I tell you what, what people have to realize when it comes to offensive line play, people tend to think that you have to either pancake a guy or move him out of place, displace him out of place in order to have a good block. Offensive line play is just the short statement is hindrance. All I have to do is hinder your progression to where you're trying to get. That's all. Whether it's a ball carrier or a quarterback, if I intersect your progression, I just hindered you. Now I've got to stand my ground because most plays are only going to last for 3 seconds at most, for the most part. So what we were taught, especially at an early age, is it's only 6 degrees of disposition. I mean displacement. 6 inches, I should say. 6 inches of displacement. That's all you need to do. If I knock you off your track just 6 inches, ever so slightly, I made a good block. Whether you're coming at me, whether I'm going at you, whether it's a run play, if everybody does their part, then it's a good block, because a running back going through a hole doesn't need a whole lot.
Yeah.
You watch people run and you watch how they get through the holes. You'll sit there and say, well, how can you get through that? It's all it takes is 6 inches of displacement. And that's the key to blocking somebody, just hindering them and getting them off their track. Then I've done my job.
Even as a pass rusher, I mean, if he gets by one of you guys, but you've pushed him 6 inches, in 10 feet, those 6 inches becomes 4 feet.
Absolutely.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That's the math. And that's why it doesn't have, you don't have to devastate everybody. All I need to do is hinder your objective. Your objective is either rush the quarterback or get to the ball carrier. If I'm in your way and I just displace you 6 inches, length of my hand, I'm good. Job's done.
I got some math nerds out there that are whipping out their protractors telling me I'm wrong. Chill out. You guys get the point. Okay. Just before we get out of here, Lincoln, and I want to thank you again for your time, for joining Kane and I on the Pillaging podcast. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I want to take you down memory lane. If this triggers you, just pass. Okay. But
you're not going.
All right.
You're not going there. You're going there, aren't you?
I'm going there. Should I not go there?
You don't have to go there. Why would you want to go there? Well, we were having such a good time. Why would you go there?
Okay.
I know you're going to something revolving around the tuck rule. What is it?
Actually, I'm not.
You're not. Okay, I'm surprised.
Just past that, Super Bowl 37. There's all the, Raiders, conspiracy theorists, 100%. Right?
Well, let me look for all your listeners out there, and I've said this time and time again. What happened had nothing, and I repeat, nothing to do with Barrett. What happened in that game is that we were outcoached because Gruden gave our playbook to his defense.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't explain it any other way than that.
Right.
We had no contingency plan. No one ever thought what would happen if Gruden took his playbook over to Monty Kiffin and said, this is what they run. We only ran 11 or 12 plays that year.
Mm-hmm.
We had different variations of it. Yeah. I could tell you what we were running and sleepwalking just by people we had in the huddle. Mm-hmm. Okay. And our checks were the same. So what Gruden did is he went to Monty Kiffin. He said, look, Monty, when you show Rich Gannon this look, he's going to check 398 razor. 398 razor means he's running a hitch, he's running a post, he's running a sluggo go. So lo and behold, we get in the game. He checks 398 razor. Oh, audible. Rich, we got a blitz look. Audible, 398 razor, 398 razor. Then everybody from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's running a hitch, he's running a post, he's going to run a sluggo.
Wow.
What do you do? So then this happened early. This happened very early in the game. We knew that they had the drop on us, on our audibles. Mm-hmm. So we go to sideline and we try to correct it. He was like, well, what can we do? Rich suggested that we call dummy audibles. I said, Rich, we've got a backup center in it. We're playing in the Super Bowl. If he gets it and he doesn't realize that it's a dummy audible and he calls it or changes the protection, you're going to get killed. We can't use dummy audibles. Mm-hmm. So we made halftime adjustments. We went back in. If you remember, we got back into the game. But the difference in the game were what? The turnovers, the pick sixes, the turnovers for touchdowns. Yeah. It wasn't like they were off. And conversely, like I knew everything they were running because I could tell by formation, having Gruden, I know what they were calling. But our defense didn't look at it like that. Oh. See, they didn't prepare like that. We got out coached. Okay. With the 1 week before it. So that's what happened in the Super Bowl. It wasn't about Barrett and going to Mexico. That was unfortunate. That was a distraction. Yeah. Nonetheless, but we were out coached and we did not have a contingency plan in place because no one ever thought with the 1 week, that was the last of the 1 weekers. No one ever thought what would happen if they know our excuse my language. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. Yep.
What would happen? What would we do if they have our plays? Yeah. Because they have our offensive coach on the other sideline. Yeah.
And when in history will that ever happen again? I mean, that can only happen one time.
I said that. Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. I said that the only person that could beat us that year was on the other sideline.
I said at the beginning of that season, ain't that a bit if Gruden shows up in the Super Bowl and look what happened.
That would have been something. And then no one ever thought about it because I'm thinking I was looking towards Philadelphia, a couple other places. All of a sudden it's them.
It should have been the Eagles. They choked.
True.
Occam's razors, guys. It's the philosophy that the theory that makes the least amount of assumptions is the correct theory. And I've always thought this, what Lincoln just told you guys. Yeah, our coach is on the other sideline. That's a problem. What's the rumor about the game plan being switched the last minute? That's baloney, right? Or
no, it wasn't. It wasn't switched.
Okay,
we couldn't switch it. Yeah, we had a backup center.
Yeah,
we couldn't switch. It was suggested early in the week. It was suggested late in the week that, hey, let's do something different. The problem is because we had such a short amount of time between the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. We only had a week.
Yeah.
So, look, the week was a huge cluster F, if you know what I mean. When we first went down there, we played the evening game. We had a meeting for the Super Bowl after the game. We were up to like 1 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning. got on a plane like 7 a.m. the next morning to go down to San Diego. Hour flight, get down, and you start all the festivities with the media day, the pictures, and all that other stuff. That goes on. Then Wednesday, when we show up, because we were supposed to use the Chargers facility, Marty Schottenheimer was the coach of the Chargers. He wouldn't let us in the facility.
Of course he wouldn't.
Oh, wow.
So our practice got knocked back a couple of hours.
Yeah.
So that threw everything off. Meanwhile, I learned this firsthand, didn't think anything about it. I'm from San Diego. I'm back in my hometown. I'm partying like it's 1999 because it's the Super Bowl.
Sure.
Unbeknownst to me, the Super Bowl is the biggest party in the world except for the players who are in it.
Yeah.
So I say that to say this. I personally think I played my absolute worst game in the Super Bowl, my worst game in my career in the Super Bowl. One thing was definitely I was damn tired. I was tired by the time game time got because I was doing way too much.
Yeah.
Lesson learned. The most unfortunate part about it, it's not easy to get there. So we thought we were going back the next year. We didn't.
Yeah. That's incredibly honest. Thank you.
What did Al Davis say to you guys after the game? Did he say anything to you guys?
No, it was just disappointing. He was just disappointed. He didn't say anything, no.
So last question. It's another tough question for you, and feel free to pass. But Raiders fans and Broncos fans, there's no love lost there between the two. You were the first player to actually do something about it. November 22nd, 1999. You took matters.
Another one you want to bring back.
No, I think that this is a huge part of Raiders lore that doesn't get talked about enough. And, I think it's 100 what you did. I think what you did after, I think I read that you filed charges, which you should have. Those weren't snowballs. Those were ice balls.
Yeah,
right?
Those ice balls. Here's the thing for me, guys. I don't take stuff lightly.
No.
And so when we had just played, in essence, 4.5 quarters of football, and I was not going to run off the field. And so in the flurry of snowballs, I was mad that we lost another game, another close one. If you guys remember, the game went to overtime.
Yeah.
And Broncos broke a long run in order to win to beat us. And I was just pissed. Again, we could not beat the Broncos. So long story short, I turned around and I was headed to the locker room, and I actually saw the guy pick up, pack the ball, and throw it right at me. That's why I took the matters into my own hands. And I had no intention, in all honesty. I had no intention of even doing anything to him, but he broke skin on the bridge of my nose, and it was bleeding.
Wow.
And so when I made my way over to him, I simply wanted him to see what he did, and I wanted an apology. Unfortunately, when I got over there, well, not unfortunately, depends how you look at it. When I got over there, I went up to the guy. I said, "Look what you did. You broke the skin on my nose. I want you to apologize." He stood up, and he had a little bit of that liquid courage in him from drinking too many beers.
Wow.
He grabbed my face mask, and he said, "Get out of here, you effing Raider."
Wow.
And so from that point, there comes, I drew back, right cross, knocked him out.
You the real MVP.
His brother stood up. "Hey, what are you doing to my brother?" Drew another one, knocked him out. I will say this. This is one of the ways I really fell in love with the nation. To the left of where we were, there were like 3 rows of Raider fans. They just rushed over there and started punching everybody. So a mini melee occurred from that. I looked down and I had my PR guy hanging from my arm. "Lincoln, no more. Let's get out of here." And we got off the field. The police came to me in the locker room. They were busting up laughing. They were like, "Why would the guy take on you?" And I said, he's like, "Well, he wants to press charges." And I said, "Look here, guys." I said, "All due respect, I know you have to do your job. I'll be more than happy to go with you and cooperate in any capacity. But I'm just letting you know, if this guy presses charges on me, I'm suing the police force. I'm suing the stadium force. I'm suing the stadium. I'm suing the city of Denver. Everybody, because you did not protect me." I said, "Look at the bridge of my nose. He assaulted me, and I had every right to react the way I did. And if you want to go ahead and press charges, then so be it, because this is going to be a long one."
Yeah, and that wasn't, like you said, it wasn't an isolated event that had been going on for at least a half of football. So they could have put some kind of stop to that. I think it was actually an important moment in professional sports, because heckling is one thing, and you see it a lot in the NBA where players are right down there the fans are right down by the players, but the fans need to know that there's a line that you can and cannot cross. Remember, this is a sport. This is, in a sense, fantasy that you're watching, right? You're making up all these storylines around it. It's entertainment. It's entertainment.
Okay.
Exactly.
And just like, but at the same point, it's like I told and telling this story, let's not get it twisted. I might be here to entertain you, and I might have entertained you, but I am a man.
Yep.
And so if you want to cross that line with me, if you want to violate me personally, now I've been heckled, I've been called everything under the sun. There's no doubt about it, especially the places I went. But I have never, except for that one time, had anyone ever cross the line and actually violate it. And once they violated, I lost it. I had to control it the way I did.
And a lot said about Raider Nation, but that's not a part of our culture. We don't throw stuff like that to the field. We may get buck wild in the parking lot. We may call you every name in the book, but we're not going to be throwing batteries or anything at you. We don't have ice balls, but you know what I'm saying.
You know what you mean.
Yeah. Beer bottles and all that. Yeah, no.
So on behalf of Raider Nation, we appreciate you, Lincoln. We really do.
You the real MVP.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. Our listeners are going to love this. I love this.
The joy was mine. Thanks for sharing, and I had appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks again, Lincoln. Take care.
Take care. I'll see you soon. All right. Bye now.
All right.
You're listening to the Pillaging Podcast, companion podcast to PillagingJustForFun.com, the only Raider fan site made by Raider fans for Raider fans, featuring fan-submitted articles and the most lively Raider Nation conversation on the internet. Follow us on Twitter @PillageJustForFun. That's @PillageJust4Fun. Also, tune in every Tuesday on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher Radio.
Yeah, what up? This is Beach Dog in the cut. I'm out here on the party boat, chilling with a couple fine homies. Honeys. Yeah, shout out to the Pillaging Podcast. Good content every week. We're out here making margaritas, getting real twisted. See you guys next time. Stay tuned. Beach Dog returns.
All right, and we're back. So, tremendous interview there with Lincoln Kennedy. Wow, great get, Kane. All due respect, Kane's the guy that landed. Mr. Kennedy, huge get for the show and for the fans. I think the stories that he shared were incredibly candid, and we got to see a different side to Lincoln than you normally get to see on the broadcast or that we ever heard about as a team member. And also, I think you get a little deeper look of an NFL player and just the reality, the humanity of being an NFL player. We look up to these people as entertainers, but sometimes we don't stop to think that these are actual people with real life, motivation, agendas, issues, what have you, right? These are complicated individuals just like you and me. So I thought that was really great just to hear the humanity in him and him to share some of his personal stories that I personally have never really heard before come out of Lincoln Kennedy or come out of that team. So that was great. I mean, what'd you take away from that?
Absolutely. I never heard some of the stories that he told in depth like that. I haven't heard him. I don't believe I've heard him tell him like that in any interview in the past. So this was an awesome experience for us and for our listeners. And I appreciate Lincoln Kennedy for coming on. That was a real pleasure.
Yeah, and so let's double back and kind of like share our takes with some of what was talked about. And let's start with, we started off talking to him about the current team. So he emphatically said that the right tackle of this team is not on the roster. He's like you and I. He supports Menelik, but the fact of the matter is, like you said, he can't stay healthy. So I also agree with what he's saying about the offensive line. I think that's a take that a lot of people don't consider. It's an old school frame of mind to go out there and draft a tackle, especially early on, and especially a right tackle, something you just don't do anymore. So, with Watson not being the answer, I expect him fully to be back this year. Do you think Austin Howard comes back as well, just for depth, or is his time with the Raiders done?
That's a good question. Because Austin Howard would be somebody like a Khalif Barnes, somebody you can bring in and he can probably play at the guard position in the right tackle in a pinch.
Yeah.
But So we'll see. I don't know. I mean, he says the right tackle's not on the roster, so we don't know if the Raiders are just if they've gone their route, gone the course with these two guys and they're ready to start over, or are they going to re-sign one of them but yet still bring in another right tackle to compete for a starting job? Apparently, like I said, Lincoln said that the right tackle is not on the roster right now. So at this point, it looks like they're going to be going out. If we're listening to Lincoln, they're going to be going out and get a new right tackle.
Yeah, and at least we can have some confidence because we have a front office in place now that's going to go out there and they're going to find good talent for good value. So rest assured, Raider Nation, this is a time that normally, we'd be up in arms having a glaring hole like this on our roster. But now the new culture is we can look at it as here's an opportunity for us to upgrade this year and have confidence that it will happen. I have all the faith in Reggie and McKenzie to go out there and find somebody to fill that hole. And we'll do more essentially than just fill a hole, but actually step up and take that position by the reins, which would be awesome. So getting into Latavius Murray, it came out this week. I saw it on Twitter, various articles reporting on it. The team will, in fact, let him test the free agency market. Now, Kennedy's take on it is that the Raiders have not yet found their run identity. And I think we could both agree with that because from week to week, we saw the run game was just really inconsistent. Some week it was a focus, some weeks it wasn't. Sure, a lot of that is dictated by matchups, but, I thought Murray put forth his best effort this year. Definitely had the line there working for him as well. But as much as I like Murray, I don't think he's the guy. I think we can do better. And I think we do need a person that's going to step up and be like, I'm the Raiders feature running back. And I think there's just too many question marks floating around Latavius Murray. What are your thoughts on that? And what's your take on what he had to say?
I think it was an interesting fact that he said that Latavius Murray did have a good season, but when Derek Carr got injured, the running game stalled. Mm-hmm. So that was very interesting. Usually if you have a running back that is capable of a workload that, we thought Latavius Murray may be capable of, they usually step up in that role. Yeah. Being and kind of take a lead in the offense, knowing that we're going to have to run the ball because we don't have a capable quarterback that can pass like Derek Carr in the game. And so, Latavius Murray had that opportunity and the run game stalled for 2 games. So I don't know how they're going to look at that in free agency. I don't know how other teams are going to view Latavius Murray. Is he a top-notch back, and is he going to garner $6 million a year? I don't know. And is he gonna go out, get a contract offer from another team, and come back to Reggie with the contract offer and see if Reggie will match it? I just don't know. Yeah, it looks like we can wave bye-bye to Latavius Murray, I guess.
So to piggyback on the first point you make, I agree with you. I think that, when the quarterback goes down, the running game needs to step up. And I think some people would counter that point and argue with you, well, when your franchise QB goes down, defenses are going to key in on the running game. So it's obvious that they're going to take that away. But I would get out in front of that, and I want to right now, and counter that argument by saying, you know what? Look across the way in Pittsburgh, and it seems like every year Ben Roethlisberger goes down for a week or two, and their running game steps up, and they got no issues over there. So, I agree with you. I don't think there's any excuse. Carr's out. That running game needs to really shoulder the load. And, hell, it could happen again this year. We don't want it to, but it's the NFL. It's a violent sport. And they got to be ready. They definitely got to be ready. And so does this coaching staff. So all of you people out there that are saying, well, you lose your QB and the defense obviously going to take away your running game. That's not true. We see around the league, other teams tend to compensate with their rushing game, and we need to do that. And I feel like we need to get on a run game early and often this year, just to make sure that foundation is there and it's respected early on in case a situation like that does happen. Or we run into a funk where, wide receivers are dropping balls again. You got to have your running game is your consistency. Your running game are the railroad tracks that keep the freight train moving in the right direction. You get off path, you go right back to the running game, get you right back on track. And so Murray, if you're back next year, I'm not going to be mad at that. And if you're gone, it was a great time to have you on the team. And I'm curious to see who the replacement is. So He didn't want to get too much into draft picks, which I understand. I think the draft is just a huge lottery, a huge gamble, and it's still really early to talk about that. But in free agency, he did mention that we need to attack every level of this defense. Agree or disagree, Kane?
Oh, I absolutely agree. I agree that, excuse me, the defensive line needs a defensive tackle. We could possibly use 2 new linebackers because while Malcolm Smith has been serviceable and I appreciate everything he's done, he can be replaced. Perry Riley Jr., again, while I appreciate everything he's done, he was serviceable last year. He can be upgraded. So, and then there's a lot of controversy surrounding the defensive backfield as far as the fans are concerned. I'm not sure what Reggie thinks, but the fans seem to think we need a new safety and we need another corner. I would say we probably won't go out and get somebody that's going to be added to that group as a starter. Maybe a slot corner. But as far as the two corners, Sean Smith and Amerson, Nelson and Cujo, I don't think we're going to replace those guys. Yeah. So when you say every level of the defense, the first 2 levels, definitely. The line and linebackers, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, I came down on Nelson pretty hard, but the guy's a vet, so I'd be willing to see if he can step up this year with a little bit more time, with an off season and some chance to gel with Smith over there on his side. I wouldn't be entirely mad at that. Be a little bit disappointing because there are some opportunities to upgrade in free agency. Tony Jefferson's out there again, and it seems like there's mutual interest. I would really like to see us land a guy like that, but of course finances are an issue anytime you get into free agency, and we already talked about earlier in the previous segment, locking up Carr and Mack are priority. So maybe that situation dictates the free agency situation. So we'll see how that pans out. I could definitely see us picking up a defensive back in the draft. It's a deep draft for that this year. So I do expect to see a new slot corner on the team, like you're saying, but you're paying Smith a lot of money, and Amerson, I mean, we got spoiled with him early on. And just newsflash for you guys, Amerson isn't an all-pro cornerback, even though he may play like it on certain drives or certain games for the entirety. I mean, surely he's had some stellar games last year, but he had some poor moments too. But that's life as an NFL cornerback. You're not going to beat them all. You're going against the fastest guys in the world, and you're running backwards. So let's give those guys some credit. So, I'm with you. Kane. I think the linebacker, I'm glad you said, you're talking about Perry Riley and you said upgraded rather than replaced. And I think that's a good word because I would like to see Riley come back and stay with us. I would not like to see him be the starting middle linebacker. So Riley, I think you're great value. I think you're a great teammate. I think you will be back, but I would like to see somebody else starting in your position. No disrespect. So moving on, shout out to all the callers this week, and all of you that listen on Reddit. You guys had some great questions. And the one question that came up everywhere and multiple times, which is why no one person was credited for this question, was the questions around Super Bowl 37. And I'm glad that once and for all, we had a guy that was on that field that can come on here and debunk all these conspiracy theories. I'm a Raider fan through and through, but one thing that really irks me is all the conspiracy theories for you fans out there. Refs having it against us. I'm not going to dispute that entirely. We're the Raiders. I get that, but it's 2017. It's not 1983 anymore, right? And things have changed. And I really just don't buy into a lot of these philosophies. And I've always said, like I told Lincoln, if Gruden ends up on the other sideline, if and when we make it to the Super Bowl that year, we're done for, right? And that's what happened. And Lincoln basically pointed out, it's not complicated. That's exactly what it was. And he said that Barrett didn't have any influence on the way that game went. I see what he's saying, but then there was sort of a contradiction there when he said they couldn't do fake audibles because they had a backup center. So right there, you see that Robin's absence did have an influence on that game. So it's a little bit of yes and no, I guess. But what stood out to you about that story or about anything that he said about his days with the Raiders? What really jumped out to you, Kane?
Well, he talked pretty much in depth about that Super Bowl, and I guess you can say he cleared up a lot of questions that we had about whether Barry Robbins was a big part of our loss, and that it tells you right there. Your old head coach has your playbook. He gives it to the defensive coordinator. He tells the defensive coordinator all of your checks, all of your line checks, all of your calls, everything. So if you standing at the line and you make an adjustment, you yell out a call, the other team standing on the other side telling you what your receivers are going to run, what your running back is going to do, what your line is going to do, you're beat. There's no way to beat that. And you cannot change that in 1 week. So, it was rather unfortunate that we had to meet up with Gruden 1 week after we had 1 week to prepare to play our old coach. That sucks.
And I'm glad that he debunked the myth that there was another game plan in place. I know Tim Brown came out and he said, I think his story got twisted, and you pointed this out to me, that I think what he really said is that there was another game plan in consideration, and Lincoln verified that. But that story got twisted into there was a heavy run game in place and they switched it the last minute, and that's why Barrett Robbins freaked out. I don't think that's what happened. I think Barrett Robbins partied a little bit too hard, and you already know he's got some mental health issues, and probably that triggered it. So again, the least amount of assumptions you can make when trying to tease out a story is probably the most accurate story you're going to come up with without knowing any of the details. And as it turns out, we were right. I mean, that's exactly, how it went down. I also liked that he, just before I get ahead of myself, knowing the defense, knowing the offensive plays, we know that firsthand how powerful that can be. You Raider fans out there that have been around for a while know that same team came back from behind to beat the Indianapolis Colts on the road. Why? Because Greg Biekert stole all the audibles. And you can see, Peyton Manning's a Hall of Fame quarterback, and Greg Biekert's not a Hall of Fame middle linebacker. But just having that knowledge, we were able to beat them hands down that day, and one of the greatest comebacks of that era. So again, thank you, Lincoln, for clearing all that up for us. Also wanted to touch on, there's players that come in, they play this game, they play hard, and then they cash a check and they walk away from it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when a player takes it to heart, there's something special about that. And Lincoln thought we were going down the tuck rule road, and we still went down a difficult path. We avoided the tuck game because that game is what it is. And you saw the level of discomfort he had wanting to talk about that. Not that he wouldn't. I'm not saying he wouldn't, but obviously there's a thorn in that man's side. Why? Because he cares, man. He's passionate. That Lincoln didn't spend his entire career with the Raider, but like Al Davis said, once a Raider, always a Raider. You can tell that loss hurt him, not as just a player, but as an Oakland Raider. True or false?
That's true. And one thing he said, when you asked him what was his favorite time with the Raiders, he noted that his favorite time was when Al Davis gave him an opportunity, that he knew once, what he said, 20 minutes after he signed and put on the uniform, that he knew he was supposed to be a Raider. So that says a lot. So he's a Raider through and through. He played like a Raider, so like I said, I appreciate everything he did on the field and off the field as a Raider.
Yeah, he's a class act, and I'm really glad he's a part of the broadcast team because he does a hell of a job there on the sideline. Let's face it, not all former players are great broadcasters, no matter how great they are. I'm looking at you, Charles Woodson. Pains me to say that, but I don't know how much longer he's going to be on ESPN, to be quite honest with you. I'm not the only one saying that, so I don't feel too bad. But number 24, we love you.
Really? Wow, I didn't know it. I didn't know that Woodson isn't faring too well on ESPN, huh?
No, he's not testing out well. I mean, there's just a lot of criticism. And who knows? He's a smart dude, so maybe there's a learning curve there. Maybe he bounces back this year, but a lot of people kind of just disappointed with Woodson's performance. One thing I do like are his antics and the fact that he takes every opportunity to show you that he is still a proud member of the Raider Nation, and I love that. I love that to death.
Props out to Charles Woodson for that.
Yeah.
Once a Raider, always a Raider.
That's it, Chuck. We appreciate you. I want to see you get better. I want to see you stay on ESPN. Let me be clear. I'm not asking for his head. I want to see him there. I want to see him rise to the occasion. So, Yeah, that was huge. But again, I want to say it again. Special shout out to all of our callers this week and to everybody that chimed in from Reddit as well. We got some good crossover there between those two communities. Don't forget, you can call us every week at 408-909-PJFF any time of the day. It's a voicemail service. Just call and drop a line. You don't have to have a question. If you want to tell us we're doing a good job, you want to tell us what we can do better, we'll field all calls. You're not going to hurt our feelings. Before we get out of here, Kane, is there anything you want to add to the show tonight?
I just want to say props out to Lincoln Kennedy for coming on.
Mm-hmm.
You can follow me on Twitter at KaneMT6 and go Raiders.
Yes, sir. You can follow Kane. You could also just follow the show at Pillaging just for fun. That's just the number 4 fun. I got to tell you, Kane's a lot more active on there. He's a really good follow. If you're not following Kane, you need to get on there and follow him. He retweets a lot of good stuff and he adds a lot of good stuff out there too. You can follow the show Twitter just to kind of get releases on episodes and stuff like that. And we'll be up in the activity there too shortly. But definitely follow Kane for sure. So you can join us every Tuesday on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Stitcher Radio. Shows drop usually Monday night, early Tuesday morning. And we're the Pillaging Podcast. We're pillaging just for fun. That's a companion site. You can go there too. It goes down in the comments section. Stay for the articles. Come for the articles, stay for the comments. And we'll see you out at the next tailgate, which is a long ways away. Come by, say what's up, Hawaiian Raider. Shout out to you, just because y'all got the bomb food going down there. But that's it for this week, folks. We're going to get up out of here, and we appreciate your listens every single week. And that's it for now. Go Raiders. We out here.
We out here. Raiders.
Like a freight train coming, you're blowing the town. Like a diesel motor, you never shut down. With your pistons pumping, you're mowing them down. It's a sight to see, they all lay their money down. When you're gone, mama, hell, you ain't acting right. When you're gone, mama, I can still see your eyes. When you're gone, mama, this'll be my last goodbye. When you're gone, gone, when the sky is gray and the night sets in,